Hi guys, welcome to our podcast with Filbrit-ish and Filipino verse. Today we have two guests, Chloe, that's pointing to the right direction, and Steph. Do you guys want to quickly introduce yourselves before we start? Chloe?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Chloe, and I am 26 years old. I'm a British Filipina living in Northwest London. I'm currently a teaching assistant in a secondary school, and in my spare time, I do podcasting. So it's quite timely that I'm on a podcast tonight.
I'm Steph. I'm 22. I'm from Essex. And my full-time job, I'm a marketing assistant. And on the side, I'm an independent singer-songwriter. And yeah.
Yay. So basically, it's International Women's Day in a couple of days, and we decided that this podcast would be a good way to discuss some issues, especially what it's like to be a Filipina, and then sort of just bounce off each other with our different ideas and opinions, I guess. So, yeah.
So pretty much sort of jumping straight in pretty much is we're all here in like London and surrounding areas. And I'm guessing we've all kind of grown up here or had similar-ish experiences. And sort of what I kind of wanted to open up with was, what did you guys sort of feel that what was your guys' experiences being like a Filipino woman in the UK, and like does that differ to, for example, how like what your parents would have thought you to be, traditional roles, and like how that sort of evolved? I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
Oh, I'm trying to like remember all the questions and like answer in my head.
So maybe like
what's your experiences been?
Yeah. So what is it like growing up as a Filipino in a Westernized society for you?
Where I live at the moment, it's very diverse. So there's a lot of different ethnicities. I live in the borough of Brent, and we were like nominated one of the most diverse boroughs in the whole of London. So I was quite fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of different people from different walks of life, different backgrounds. So as a Filipina, it was easy for me to fit in because I had people from, let's say, Colombia. I had people from Brazil, from, different parts of Africa. So it wasn't hard for me to explain where the Philippines was or who I was. It was quite hard in terms of like seeing other Filipinos in my school or college. That was quite rare. But for me personally, it wasn't that hard. No, I wouldn't say I had to face anything when I was younger. Maybe like now, like the last few years, so basically I used to do hair. So I worked within a hair industry, and it was quite it wasn't normal to see like a Filipina in a high-end kind of hairdressers. So when I did come to face with people of the same kind of ethnicities, like Caucasians and black ethnicities, they were like, oh, where are you from? Because they were curious. They've never seen someone like me or someone within that hair industry. So I did a lot of explaining in the sense. So yeah, it was kind of like mixed. It was good when I was growing up, but then a bit harder as I was older.
For me, I think I'm within all of us. I think I'm bringing a different side of it because I didn't really grow up here in the UK. I moved here 5 years ago or 6 years ago, back in 2015. So it's more of coming in to the UK with a different, more solid Filipino background, if you know what I mean, because I spent most of my life there. So for me, it was more of adjusting and trying to understand like the difference of the cultures and stuff. Obviously at first it was hard, not just being Filipino, not just being a woman, but just in general, moving to a new place, having to learn about the culture, meeting and being with other people, of different cultures as well. It was a huge shock, especially when I came here was when I started uni. So it was like, okay, bye. Face other people of different cultures and stuff, and then fend for yourself. It was quite hard as a whole, really. It was more of adjusting to the environment, getting used to being independent. It was a lot of things at the same time. But when I went past the adjustment phase, it was not that much of a big deal. Anyway, because I realized that there's so many, as Chloe said, there's so many different nationalities living in this country, where, especially in my uni, there were so many international students like myself. So it wasn't odd that I was Filipino, or I didn't feel like I was the odd one out, because I saw different people around me that were either Filipino or looked Filipino, because they were from Southeast Asian countries as well. So yeah, it wasn't that bad, really.
I find it really interesting how you said the thing about uni, because I've been in like a kind of like the reverse situation in some ways.
Right.
Like I've always grown up here, and like growing up, I lived in a predominantly white area, and like most of my school was like white, and so it was weird going to uni and being like, oh look, there's like the international students, and people would like group me with them, and I'd be like, but I don't. I'm so confused, because they're like, oh, like, are you new here? And I'm like,
Makes sense.
oh, and I was a bit like, I didn't know. It was that the new feeling of like I didn't know where to fit in, because I looked like I was with them, and like it's fun talking about like a dual culture and like what it's like to kind of like come over here and like the different intricacies. But then also like I was like, but I'm also not like them. I'm also like these people, because I've grown up here, and it was just like it's just interesting hearing your point of view from like the other way around. So
yeah. Also, like, it depends, because I know some people that have moved here at like such a, I wouldn't say old, but like compared to other people that were brought up here, sometimes they're like, they find it hard to adjust, and some others they literally just like they adjust straight away. There's literally like it goes either way, so it's just so
It really
strange to hear that.
depends. Because for me, I came here and I wasn't that old. I was basically like a teenager, so I was open to learning as well. I was open to adapting. But obviously there are some things within me and my character that I'm going to keep already, because I've built that, part of me. But at the same time, I'm still open to learning and picking up things that are from this culture, the British culture.
Out of curiosity, yeah, exactly. No, just a question for like both of you. Would you classify yourself as like anything like that? Would like Steph, do you feel like you're becoming like a Filipino British person, or are you like, I'm a Filipina who is in Britain? And like same with Chloe, like in such a multicultural place, do you feel like, oh, I'm still like I am a Filipina, or like is there not any like classification for you? Like do you ever think about that?
I think for me, so when someone says, where are you from? I go, I was born here, but my parents are Filipino. So that it signifies that I am British with a Filipino descent. Then my mom goes, no, you're British, you're not Filipino. So it's weird that, she goes, you're not, well, she goes, yeah, in the nicest way possible. She goes, yeah, you're British, you're not Filipino because you're born here. For me, I want to keep the kind of heritage where I was from and show that off. So in a way, yes, I'm British, but I will always say that I've got a Filipino ethnicity. And I know a lot of people who are in the same position as me say the same thing too.
For me, I think I'm I'm in a different I have a different stand, or I think I'm more of the Filipino living in Britain kind of person for now, because as I said, I don't think I've spent too much time here yet to adapt so much in myself at a lot of things that are British. I'm starting to, and when I moved here, because you guys know how in the Philippines we're taught American English. Like even me talking now, it's more Filipino English or American English than it is British English. But little things like adjusting to the words, you know, how pants and trousers, simple things like that. Um, I still see myself as more Filipino, really. And just because of the things I'm doing as well, it's still more closer to home or closer to Philippines. I say home, but I live here, but I still call the Philippines home. So yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, with me, like, I actually moved here when I was 3, so I pretty much basically grew up in England. But I mean, obviously, I've been influenced by British culture. I do things that you'd see British people do, but not really Filipinos. But at the end of the day, I still think I stick to my roots. I still believe that I am Filipino. I still follow Filipino traditions and that kind of thing. So yeah, but I don't know. I think it just depends really on the person. If you allow
And I
yourself
think
to, you know.
it depends on your families as well, doesn't
Oh
it?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was gonna say my parents are like they're very traditional, so I think that's
exactly.
sort of passed down on to me. So yeah.
I find it interesting how Steph, you were talking about like the like Filipino English, and like it brings like memories of when I was like I moved here when I was like 2, but I still went into like kindergarten or like nursery, and when they were like, I guess it was reception, when they were like, so like what are the vowels, and I was there like e or oo, and they were like, so what, and they're like, you're taking the mic, and I'm not, and I was just there like and like stuff like that.
That's so
like,
cute.
and it was like little bits and bobs, like I would call things like vitamins and like my vitamin C, and they're like it's vitamin, and like stuff like that. My mum was telling me like when I was growing up, obviously it washed over my head. I was like, okay, cool. But she was like, it's so weird sending your child to school, like they're coming back being like, oh mum, you taught me wrong, like how, like this or the other. And she was like, don't want to say anything, I didn't teach you wrong, but it's not this, it's like it's a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, but I think
definitely.
considering that you were young and you moved here really young, I think you had more time to adjust to the language or the different kind of English. But for me, I'm still trying to, because almost all my life I grew up saying these words and saying these sentences when they can mean different here. So I'm still conscious with the words I'm using.
Yeah,
and
for
I
some
find
people here, they might call you out and be like, oh, that's not right. Like, how come you're talking in that kind of way? And you're just like, that's what I was taught back at home. But it's just, you know.
I actually find myself switching how I talk and the words I say if I'm talking to my friends from back in the Philippines, because they speak English as well. But the way I talk, I notice is different when I'm talking to them or when I'm talking to people from here. It's just interesting as well.
I find that was like I had again similar experience, but Chloe, you might know. So Chloe and I both worked together. We were both at Miss Philippines UK. Chloe was very much my mentor, and it was that was the kind of time for me that I was tuning into more of my like Filipino culture and like really going into it and like wanting to explore it more. And I found that I had like a kind of like a dual personality of like me with my friend, like my English friends versus me when I was like with like the Miss Philippines lot. And like I could feel myself like kind of switching and being in some ways more loud or like more stereotypically like Filipino, and then like leaving the rehearsal hall and like kind of switching back. And I just thought like I was wondering for all of you, do you? I mean, we heard about Steph, but like, do you have similar experiences being with like Filipino people, or just like is it all of like just you're like that, all of that anyway?
For me, I've got two different types of Filipino friends. So I've got Filipino friends who are born and raised in Philippines, in here teenage years, and then I've got British-born Filipino friends. And I totally agree. My personality switches differently. So when I'm with my British-born friends, it's all like ghetto. It's all like, you know, banter. It's like, you know, British dry humor. And then when it goes to my Filipino-born friends, like I go all fobby. And then I've got to like switch up my accent a bit, and I speak Tagalog to them as well. And then, you know, it's completely, I completely agree with you, Keisha. You kind of see yourself adapting to it, but it's nice that you can change, because there's a lot of people who are either or, whether you're born here or in the Philippines, and they don't want to change and they don't want to be adaptable. So, like, there might be some British Filipinos who only stick to British culture and they're not really in touch with their Filipino side, or there are some Filipinos who will just be fully Filipino and won't the British. So I think it's really important that people kind of look into the other culture that they're living in, be adaptable, because, you know, there's no harm in trying to but only to a certain extent. You don't want to fit in because you're being forced to, kind of thing.
Upon what Chloe said as well, I love that all four of us are the type of Filipinos who are still connected to our Filipino side. Because as Chloe said, there are some Filipinos who are just almost hiding the fact that they're Filipino, which is a shame, really, because there's so many things to be proud of in our history, our culture, and stuff.
Exactly. Actually, the whole hiding Filipina thing, that's another issue we could discuss, I guess, later. Because I have a topic for that, sort of. But yeah.
I've got.
Sorry.
I've just got like one more thing in terms of it kind of links. So I was wondering for again everyone on here, whether you think there's a difference maybe between for you or like you back home in the Philippines, or like whether Celise and Chloe, if you see like a difference between your role kind of not as a woman, but like what you're expected to do in terms of you and like your views of your parents, or Steph, like you back at home. Is there like a different like traditional role that women plays, or do you think it's like it's just a thing of the times?
I would agree with both. So in terms of being a woman as a Filipino, there's the expectation, I mean, only from my own experience, from my own mum, that you've got to learn the basics of being basically a wife. You know what I mean? Like, you've not even as a wife, but wife material. So you've got to learn how to cook, you've got to learn how to clean, you've got to learn how to be, you know, care for your man or be caring for your family. And I think there's that big expectation that you need that in your life. It's not like, oh, you're going to be independent forever and you can do whatever you want. There's that expectation where you have to be kind of perceived, you know, housewife Filipina. Then on the other hand, for me, I was never forced to do things I didn't want to do, whether it was my career or like do hobbies and stuff. I was never forced to do the whole typical dressing route. Like, it was only just do what you love as long as it makes you happy, but at the same time, as long as you make money, kind of thing. Which, I mean, obviously you've got to make money, but you know, the big bucks, you know, because your parents have come here to earn for you, so it's kind of like inevitable that you earn for them, kind of thing. So I mean, as a whole, it was a bit of mix of both roles. You kind of have the discipline, knowing that you have to do things a certain way and learn it, but at the same time, for me, I could still have the freedom to do what I want as long as it made me happy.
Me, I think I wasn't really brought up, even back in the Philippines, I wasn't really brought up in a very traditional way. You know how Filipino traditions, like the girls are meant to do the chores and stuff. I I wasn't brought up that way. I mean, the expectation wasn't huge. It was less about gender and more about responsibility. Regardless if I'm a girl or not, just as a child who lives with your parents at home, you should know that you need to help out at home and stuff like that. But it was more evident for me when I moved here than when I was back in the Philippines, which is actually quite strange because when I was back in the Philippines, I was fortunate enough to live comfortably and have a maid and stuff like that. And yeah, here it's not really a thing here, and you have to do things on your own more. And yeah, when I moved here was when I stepped up more and helping out around the house and stuff. Not because I was expected to, but more because I realized that I want to. And it's also partly an unspoken responsibility. I mean, it's the least I can do for my parents, for providing for me. So yeah, it's more of now than before, really.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I definitely have an expectation coming from my parents because it's like I think it's to do with like the whole Asian stereotypes kind of thing. You know, you have to get good grades, you have to give back to your parents like when you graduate and get a good job, that kind of thing. And like, I don't know if you guys have anyone that does this, but my mum, she always sends money to the Philippines. And she always says to me, "Oh, Stelize, when you're old enough and when you have enough money, when you make enough money, you're gonna do the same thing for me, right?" And I'm just like, yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't mind. Obviously, I would do that because they're my parents, and I believe that you should be able to give back to your parents. But I feel like sometimes there is a line as well that shouldn't be crossed because in a way that you should be independent. Like, you don't want to, what's the word? You don't want to like disown or disobey your parents in a way, but there's things that you have to learn by yourself independently, if that makes sense, rather than, you know, fulfill expectations that your parents are expecting you to be. So, yeah, that's my experience.
That's interesting because talking about expectations as well, I think it's built in within our culture, although our parents don't directly say it. It's almost at the back of our minds where we're like, we have to get the best job, we have to earn money, we have to do things to sort of pay back or give back to our parents. Even if they don't really say that directly, it's because our culture is like that. We kind of have it built in also within us.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how, like, yes, I very much, I feel the same sentiments, but it's for me when talking to, like, not necessarily grandparents, but like the one-up generation from our parents, and like, for me, I understand it more in the Philippines, is like when I go back, they're always talking more about like, you know, do you have a boyfriend? Or like, you know, they're always talking about kind of like more family life and that kind of thing. Like they expect you to do that, instead of talking about, you know, like what's your job or like how's like the success going. It's always inquiries about like home life. I don't know. I just thought that was whereas over here, if I'm like talking to grandparents and stuff, they're like, oh, so like, what do you do for uni, or like what, like where you see yourself going in 5 to 10 years. Like they don't tend to mention home life unless it's brought up. And I was just wondering if it's the same for you guys. Like I don't know. That was just my own experience.
I think so too. Yeah, that's quite relatable in the sense where I think the older generation, I think they're very family orientated, and family ethics are quite strong, especially within the Filipino culture. It's kind of that sense of making sure you find the right one, and then get married, have kids, and it's just that step by step thing, isn't it? Which is expected. Then the next generation down, who are presumably our parents, who come abroad, are more money motivated because what they weren't able to have from their own parents is money and stability and materialistic things. So they either go abroad or they work harder where they're in the Philippines, and then it's all money, money, money. And then that's what we're instilled to. So we get a bit of, family, money. But then when we grow up abroad in a different country where we don't see either really. We see happiness, we see, fulfillment, we see, self-care, and we see other things that the other generations don't. And then we kind of still, like what Steph said, kind of feel at the back of our mind that we have to do that without even knowing, because we've seen that from generations behind us. So it's kind of like we get everything and then we create ourselves, and then when we have kids we instill that. So it's kind of like every generation has their kind of thing, then it just gets passed down. I hope that made sense in some way.
Yeah.
I think I don't really encounter too much family members like that who are too pokey on personal lives. Thank God. Because I do find that odd or uncomfortable, but it's a typical Filipino thing, isn't it? Like they're a bit pokey on your personal life, your love life, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Keisha did touch upon an interesting point, and Chloe as well, that it's different. The generation above our parents are more family oriented. That's why they tend to be the more touchy on your personal life. But then the generation of our parents, they're more about work and personal success, really. And then just expanding on what Chloe said, I'm not sure if you guys agree, but I think with us now, we're more career oriented, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how that developed and changed.
Yeah, I agree because nowadays there's a lot of opportunities for women. So a lot of women are focusing on their careers rather than starting a family. And for me, when I go to the Philippines, I think it's a bit of both for me. I've got grandparents asking me, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend? You're in a relationship? Do you have a job?" That kind of thing. But I think it's more half and half rather than just them poking about in my personal life. And yeah, I think it's just a mixture of both for me. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. Is there another topic? Should we go on to the next one? Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you guys. What do you guys think is the biggest issue facing women today? It's just a very general question. Is there anything that you guys want to touch upon and discuss about the issues that women are facing?
I think it's where you should be at a certain age. I think that's a really strong problem that women of today are facing and growing up from a young age. I think, there's this perception, and I'm sure everyone's had this conversation with someone, that you've got to be a certain age in a certain stage of your life. It's got to go step by step. You finish secondary school, you go college, university, graduate, get a good job, meet someone, have kids, work, retire. I think that is what is perceived, and I think nowadays there's so much more of a no, there isn't a step by step. And I don't know if you guys came across this. There was this really cool Instagram illustrator, and she did 2 illustrations of like a character the same age but doing 2 different things. So she was 35. You're nodding, Keisha, like you've seen it. She was 35. One had kids in her hand. The other one was a successful businesswoman. And so
wow, yeah.
I think I might.
Sounds familiar?
Yeah, I think I've seen it, yeah.
I think that was such a strong thing where, no matter the age, everyone's at different points of their lives. And I think it's so important to tell the younger generation that that's what is happening and that's what they should remember growing up, so that they don't face. For someone like me, I was a bit, should I change careers at this point of my life at being 26? Then it was kind of like, well, if I don't do it, I'm going to turn 30 and still think the same thing. So I might as well start somewhere. But I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the a problem that a lot of women of today face in terms of where they should be in their lives at a certain age.
I think, I jump in? On a similar vein, I was having this conversation with a friend, well, actually a group of friends, both like guys and girls, like a couple of weeks back. And it was interesting hearing the girls being like, oh yeah, I've got what, I know it's not going to be like realistic, but I've got my life like planned out potentially. And the guys are like, are you joking? Like, are you being serious? And we're like, well, yeah. And then we had a discussion where it probably stems from girls having more of like a biological clock. So they feel like it, or maybe it was like things before, like they felt like, oh, like time's running out, I need to like do this, and like have a plan of what to go. Whereas guys are like, enjoy life if it happens. Like if something happens, it happens. And like it was interesting hearing a guy say like, yeah, but to be honest, if you're in a committed relationship, or like, if you are in probably a heterosexual relationship, but like whatever your like significant other's biological clock is technically yours as well. Like it just, and I had never thought of that, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That's a good one. Oh gosh.
So yeah, it was just like you hearing, like you bringing up that, Chloe. I was like, oh yeah, like it brings back memories of a conversation. So thought I'd chime in on that.
Yeah, I think I saw that post as well. It's really interesting, because you're right. Like, we're expected to. I think it was. What was the number? Before that typical number 25, like is the age where you should start building your life with a family or something. Start building a family, but now I think it's less evident, because as we spoke about earlier, things are changing, society is changing, and their expectations are changing. We have so many opportunities around us, where that isn't really the focus anymore at that age. And don't you guys think it's crazy when you think 25 was the age that they expected us to build a family? That's like 3 years away.
As I'm 26, it ain't happened. So
yeah,
exactly.
I've passed that age, and it's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like my mum, she had me when she was 24 or 25.
Mine as well.
Yeah, like our parents, I don't know about you guys, but if your mothers had you at a young age as well, but my mum tells me now, oh no, don't start a family now, like you have to focus on your career. But part of me wants to start a family young, but I mean, that's not going to happen, anytime soon. But yeah, she's more focused now on me actually trying to get my career first before actually starting a family, which is such a big difference compared to what she had to go through having me at 24, 25 compared to what she's telling me now. But I feel like everyone is on different paths. Like, I don't think it matters what age you want to start a family, what age you want to get your career sorted out, as long as it makes you, as long as it makes you happy. Like, it doesn't matter.
I think
Yeah.
so. Like similarly, but the thing that I think the biggest issue facing, I want to say, women in more developed countries, like that's my little caveat, is that when thinking about, linked into this like timeline and like this expectation, when thinking about jobs and things and like work, I feel like there's still an expectation in the work world that people expect you to want to start a family at some like towards your 30s. And so I feel like I've heard loads of stories from like other podcasts and stuff of like women being scared or feeling they have to rush their job progression because they feel that if they like want to start something or like want to move jobs or something when they're 30, people are going to go, oh yeah, but are you going to start a family soon? Are you going to take maternity leave and having to like stop and then start again? And like, I know things are progressing so that this is less of an issue, but I think that, and in terms of like equal pay, because companies may think, again, stuff that I've only read, but companies may think that, oh, we can't pay it, like we can't keep paying her that much because she'll leave the company soon to go have a child and we don't know if she's going to come back. Like, it's just stuff that I've read and like those kind of thoughts, and they're like, I think women need to have more of a, or people need to expect less of like women that they're going to like leave, or like they're not going to be able to bounce back after having a child, or like men, and they can have like parental leave instead of maternity leave. Like, I feel like there's still not equality within life, but I want to focus on like the workspace.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Does anyone else have any issues that?
For me, I think, just building on the initial question about the major issues, I think the first thing that came to my mind really is social media and seeing other women and affecting your self-confidence and your self-esteem just because of how life, not just as a woman, but how life is sometimes pictured on social media. And going to women, like, social media is great, but at the same time it is or can be damaging. Like, for example, you see these stories about people feeling bad about themselves because they see other women who look a certain way, and they think that to be beautiful they need to look this way. But on the other hand, because of social media as well, we also see people who are advocates of self-positivity and body positivity. So you have both, really. It just depends on what you see or what you consume and how you take it in as well. But I believe there are many women struggling as well with how they process the things they see on social media and how it affects them.
Yeah. To kind of expand on that, there's also the problem of like over-sexualizing women, or you could say over-sexualizing Asians more specifically. How do you guys feel about the whole issue of people over-sexualizing Asians? Yeah. Is there any? Do you see a problem? Well, of course, there's a problem. Is there anything that bothers you or anything like that surrounding that topic?
I mean, the issue's been around for for quite some time, and not just Asians, but
Sorry,
women.
More specifically, like with the whole K-pop group, there's a lot of people that like to over-sexualize like Koreans and stuff, or over-sexualizing or fetishizing. I couldn't say this word the other day. Fetishizing like Asians, especially like Korean guys, now that K-pop's such a big thing nowadays. But it's just weird because I feel like people see it as a crime for someone to fetishize a girl, but if it was a guy, for example, it's seen like it's okay. It's become a norm for people to kind of fetishize Asians.
I think the issue it kind of builds into is more like power playing and like relationships, whether it's like a long-term relationship or not. It like becomes a thing where people assume that women or like Asian women or anyone in this like particular situation are willing to be like submissive all the time, or like they're only being used for to be pleasure sex or like that kind of thing. And I feel like that's there's lots of things like wrong with it, but like it leads on to the fact that people assume that you're not going to be like the strong one in the relationship, or people can walk all over you, and that power play is not like that's not healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about relationships, if you guys don't mind getting a bit deep, do you believe that there's an expectation of a relationship in, let's say, Filipino dating culture kind of thing? Or do you think it's equal?
This was something that was... Oh, sorry, Chloe.
No, go for it.
This was something that my best friend talked about one time, I think, on the live stream. And she was saying how in the Philippines or in Filipino culture, the view on dating is different. If you're seen, or if a woman is seen to be dating like multiple people, you're seen in a bad light, or you're seen badly by traditional Filipinos or like older Filipinos. Whereas with us, being more aware, being more open, that's not really a bad thing or a negative thing anymore. Or maybe it's just me, but I think it's different how they see relationships and dating, because it's a Filipino thing, isn't it? And you say relationship, it has to be stable. It has to be a serious commitment to like one person or something. But I don't know. How about you guys? What do you guys see now or notice?
I think growing up here in London with parents adapting more to the Westernized culture, I think, personally, it's more as long as you're happy kind of thing, depending on how many people you see or you choose to be the one. It's as long as you're happy and you're being treated right. There are some parents who are a lot more stricter than others, and I can't account for that. But for myself, it was kind of like, find a nice guy and get to know them, go out with them, and then it's the pressure of getting married. Because the older you get, the less likely you might not have children, or etc. etc. So from friends that I know of, there are some who aren't dating yet because there's no pressure for them to date. However, there are some who have gotten married because they want to. So I think for me, there is no pressure in terms of who you see or how long it takes. a lot of the time it's you do your own choice. And I find that a lot of people don't tend to share their personal relationship with their family. They tend to keep it to themselves. And they find that they're hesitant to let their parents know because their parents might judge them. So some may, some might not. I'm only going off things that I know. I think if you were to grow up here, and sometimes like other culture relationships as well, if you were to date someone that's non-Filipino, is highly accepted too within like Filipino families here. I don't know about you guys, but I know quite a lot of people who are dating other cultures or ethnicities as well, and that's been quite acceptable.
I think very, very much like building on that. So my boyfriend is white, and it's that in like relationships, more like in the like dating, I find, or like flirting. I feel there's very different styles depending on if it's like a Filipino or if you're in the Philippines, whether it's like here or even if like Filipinos here, like the whole concept of like a mutual understanding or what are the rest of them, like when you're courting someone, like it was only since like talking to like Filipino friends I was like, what, you're courting someone? I was like, wait, what? I was like, what's going on? And then they're like, oh, there's a difference between like courting, then like going out, then being the mutual understanding, then boyfriend and girlfriend, then this. And I was like, wait, like what? And they're like, oh, it's just like a Filipino thing. I'm like, but I'm like, wait. So like, I feel like there are different styles, and it's just odd seeing like the dichotomy and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I think the relationships here in Britain are very fast forward, fast paced, straight to the point and direct. And I think people tend to be a lot more honest when they're dating. So they're like, I like you, I don't like you, and then they leave it at that. Whereas Filipinos, they tend to really long it out and they want to like make it all like fairy tale and see if that things are going to work, and they want to be proper about it. So it's kind of like, for me, it was just, I just adapted to the British culture and just, you know, you either like it or you don't. Yeah.
Chloe, am I allowed to prompt you on your personal life with Matt? Because you guys went out for a while.
I didn't know that was coming.
Just only if you're comfortable, and like I was just wondering what.
No, of course. Yeah, nothing to hide.
So you guys went out for what, 10? And then recently got engaged. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, we've been together for 11 years.
Congrats.
Thanks.
And I was wondering, kind of like, sorry, Celeste, you go.
So how long were you two together for before you were engaged?
So we were together for about coming up to 9.5 years. Then we got engaged. And then obviously with the pandemic. Yeah. I mean, 11 years last year. So yeah, it's been quite a while. Yeah. As a whole.
Oh my gosh. Is he Filipino? If you don't mind.
Yes, he was Filipino. He's Filipino.
Yeah, wow.
And one of the most talented dancers I have ever met in my entire life.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's so good. Oh my god. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, with Filipinos, it's so funny because like the whole courting process, it goes on for like years and years and years. Like compared to the people here, it's like 2 weeks, you're my girlfriend. And I've had like a lot of that because like you, Keisha, I've also dated someone who was white, and then I think I've only dated like 2 Filipino guys in my life, and the rest were like other races. So it's just like I got to experience how dating culture was like with each of them.
And I think it's also interesting as well, going back to the generation's point of view. Our parents now are more open and more understanding towards relationship compared to their parents' generations, where they were really involved in like their children's relationship, and actually to the point where they have a say whether they like the person for you or not. And if they don't, then tough luck. Bye-bye. But now it's more like what Chloe said, if you're happy, then yeah, feel free to love who you want to love or see who you want to see. And I think we're lucky to have that, really.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I feel like my parents can be really strict when it comes to relationships, or they can't be. It's half and half, but it just depends on the guy and the context, I guess. But I don't know about you guys. Like, are your parents quite strict when it comes to relationships, or no?
My parents aren't really. No.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, it's so strange to see that, because before it's like, oh, you can't date this person, that kind of thing. But now parents are just like, oh, do whatever you want.
And with being strict, just a question for you guys as well. Are your parents, let me rephrase, how do I rephrase? Because for me, my parents are more, not just in relationships, but generally. I have enough freedom to be able to do things I want to do and actually make the mistakes that I can make and just learn from those. And they're not like, don't do this because this is going to happen. If I was going down that route and I was to make a mistake, then they want me to see or learn myself rather than stopping me and doing things and saying or telling me off or something. Is that the same for you guys now, or like growing up or whatever?
Yeah, I was brought up like that. I think it was more like discipline for me. It was more you can do what you want, but know that there's a boundary. So I mean, even till this day, I'm shook to come home at 11 p.m. because my mom's gonna like ask me questions. But it's because I've got that respect for her kind of thing. Because I was brought up to be respectful and to always. I don't know how to explain it, but always know that there's a boundary set. You know, you can do what you want, you can see who you see, be friends with whoever, but know that if you do make a mistake, that's on you and you've got to learn from it. But know that also you've been disciplined by me and don't bring embarrassment to me, kind of thing, as a parent. I think it's weird because it's like, yeah, my mom's really not strict, but she's strict.
I get what you mean. I can say that for my mom as well.
It's weird because, it's fine, like, oh yeah, I'm going out, yeah, that's fine. But then they'd be like, make sure you come home not late. And you're like, okay. Like, it's a bit half and half. But then it comes down to you being thankful for that because you know that you've got that respect and that kind of, you've got manners, basically. You know how to respectfully obey your parents, but without fear of it. Because I know other cultures or other friends, they do things that are rebellious. And
that's what I was gonna say as well.
Yeah, like
the more that they're
definitely
controlled.
Like, if I tell you not to do it, you're going to do it anyway. So you might as well do it, learn from it, and then if you want to repeat it, then that's on you. That's not my fault because I've taught you already, isn't it? So I think that's really instilled in me, and I value that kind of Filipino discipline because I know I can bring that to my kids in the future. Because I know British way of upbringing is a lot more different. So I'm grateful for that Filipino upbringing in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same. I was trying to think of how to word it, but like growing up, you kind of, well, for me, I had like things instilled within me growing up, so that now that I'm like, I know why things would be wrong or right, and like my mum, I feel like my mum's like, you have total freedom to do whatever because you already know if it's right or wrong and what the consequences are if you do it, and if like yeah, if it goes wrong, then like your family will support you, but like you went into the situation knowing what the risks are, kind of thing.
You kind of learn accountability as well with that way of growing up and upbringing. You take responsibility for your actions more, I think. Growing up like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's better that we go out and learn to make mistakes rather than our parents just being like, no, you can't go out, because like what Chloe said, people become rebellious, and I guess it just depends on how your parents kind of discipline you. So, but yeah. Also, guys, I think we're running out of time. I think it's been nearly an hour, or almost an hour. But yeah.
So, we've got one final question. I guess it's quite a quick one.
All right.
For Chloe, Steph, and Celise, if you want to join in. What advice would you give to sort of younger girls or your younger self? What's the biggest advice you could give?
It's a tough one. Come back to me. I'm thinking.
I can go first.
Go for it.
I've already said this before, I think. For younger girls or to my younger self, one thing I can say is to just do things you want to do, really. Because now is the time where you can. Society is so much more open to women, although it's a work in progress. Society is so much more open to women. Different areas of just everything, really. Like for me, speaking for myself, in terms of music, the industry used to be, especially behind the scenes of like music production and stuff and making music, it used to be a space for guys, but now you see female producers or female artists also excelling themselves, because now it's more open to women, and there's so many other inspiring women as well that we can learn from, and just do it. Like if you want to do something, if you want to make music, do it. If you want to paint, do it, because you can. And we have so much resources to learn and put out our work. And just go. Just go, girls. Just do it.
I think for me, it's to choose who you surround yourself with. Choose wisely, and don't always feel like you need to be friends with the people to fit in. I think now more than ever, with everything going on, it's needed to have a really good network around you and a good stability of friends, and I think even just meeting you guys, I mean, for Steph and for Stellise, I've never met you, but I felt like I've known you guys forever, and I think it's really nice to surround yourself by people who you can connect with and that will influence you in all the good in all good ways possible, because I've grown up. I mean, I haven't grown up with like bad influences, but I've fallen out in and out with people, and some obviously it's good, sometimes it's bad, and for me now, I've really like made kind of like my strong circle of friends and strong connections, and I think now more than ever, you're coming across people of different walks and different lives, but it's about how you communicate with them and how you show yourself off as a person. And I really believe that whether you have one friend or 100 friends, just make sure that they're going to be there for you no matter what. Because there's no point of having those 100 friends and not even one of them's going to be like, are you okay?
Love that.
What's the point, isn't it? What is the point? Because at the end of the day, you'll be left with nothing if no one's there for you anyway, kind of thing. So you're better off being on your own and believing in yourself rather than being filled with friendships that are just meaningless. So yeah, that's the best advice I think I could give younger generation and even the younger me, to really surround yourself with people that will bring out the best in you. If they don't, then bye, Felicia. Bye.
That's so nice, Chloe. It's such a good advice and a good point, because who you surround yourself with also plays a huge factor on your character and you discovering yourself and building yourself. If you're with people,
they say you are who you hang around with, so you better hang around with good people if you want to be a good person.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, I think my advice I'll give myself is don't rush and take your time, because I don't know if I said this earlier, but I recently just graduated from uni, and I did. Thank you. I did law with business, thinking that I would come out of that I wanted to be a lawyer, but that's changed. I've completely changed my career path now. I basically want to be doing marketing, like Steph. I want to get myself into marketing, and it's just it's weird. Like a lot of people around me, especially like a couple of my friends, that they're already in that position where they've got like secure jobs and stuff. And unfortunately for me, I'm still looking because of the pandemic. As a graduate, it's really hard to find a job, and like at one point I was just really upset and like really down about it, because it just felt as if everyone else they knew what they were doing, but for me, I'm still searching, like trying
just
to find.
Want you to listen to my podcast because I talk about that.
Oh my god, yeah.
do it.
That's perfect.
I literally I completely relate to that, and no, I think that's so true. When you're stuck in that, you're stuck
like
in
a black
the middle.
hole. Yeah,
I think we've all pretty much been through
everyone.
that. Really.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my advice. Don't rush. Take your time. And to be honest, because of that, because of not taking that career path as a lawyer, I created my own business, Stilly's Customs. So yeah, guess it all worked out in the end.
Everything for a reason, and we all have our own timelines, and we just have to focus on our own paths and not be sidetracked by others.
Yeah.
Good people around you.
Yes. Yes. For sure. What about you, Keisha? Do you have any?
I'll keep mine sort of short. You guys mentioned a lot of things. I was like, okay, that's taken. That's taken. I think the thing that I would say is that, like, kind of go for it. Like, even if you don't fill in, like, the 10 criteria points that things are, like, needing, if you fill 8 or 9 of them, do it anyway. Like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does, like, it would have been such a shame if you went, oh, no, never mind, I don't fill all 10. Like, go for it. Like, why not? So, that's fine.
100%. But yeah, I think that concludes the podcast for tonight. Yay! Thank you guys so much for taking the time out.
Where can we guys find you?
Yeah. Do you have any socials that you want to...
Social links, let's go.
Chloe, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I have a personal page, which is at _.Chloe Chanel. Then my podcast page is at _up close. So it's CHLOS and personal, up close and personal.
I love
so you
that
can
name.
follow me
It's
for...
so good.
It's quite good, isn't it?
It's so
you can
smart.
Follow on my personal page for all things that's just what I do day to day, and then my podcast page where I just everything all podcast related. And
Would
hopefully,
definitely recommend. So good.
I've got about a few episodes already, and it's everything that we've spoken about, and I think it's all life experiences that I've been through, and hopefully you guys watching or listening can relate to it in some way.
For me, you can find me on Instagram at Steph Rosado, and I have a Facebook page as well, Steph Rosado Music. Yeah, as I said previously, I do make music. I'm an independent musician, and you can search for my songs on Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms.
Spotify.
Just search. My artist name is Steph, but being from the UK, it's harder to find Steph. So, to our fellow Filipinos out there, you can stream my first ever EP. It's called Ang Kwento ng Pag-ibig. And yeah.
Wow.
Thanks so much.
Oh shit.
Amazing. Yeah, do we let's shout out ours too?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so you can find me on my personal account at Stillies, literally just at Stillies. My business account, Stillies Customs, where I basically do custom hand painted footwear. So you guys want to check that out.
You want to see them?
And lastly, at Filipinoverse, which is basically something I recently created because I wanted to connect Filipinos and Filipino-led businesses. Yeah, that's about it.
And mine. So if you want to follow my sort of me, it's at Keisha Kihano, and that I'm going to spell it because my name KEISHIA and then QUIJANO, and I post those of like sometimes shouting out Filipino businesses, but mostly just like photo shoots and stuff from Miss Philippines UK. And then the business account. So guys, Filbrit-ish, let's go. Please follow. I can that up. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone for
Thanks
their
so
time,
much for having us.
your thoughts.
Really enjoyed the convo.
This has been incredible.
Yeah, it was really nice hearing your thoughts and your opinions. Yeah.
Time passes so quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On for another hour.
Amazing.